Oh boy, disclaimer.
Welcome one and all to Simpsons Treehouse of Horror Countdown Review. Continue watching, if you dare. Kicking off the 14th installment of Treehouse of Horror, we see Bart and Lisa having returned home from trick-or-treating. After Lisa steals Bart's only decent piece of candy, he attacks her and they try to kill each other. After Homer accidentally gets stabbed with a fire poker, he too joins in, throwing a flaming log at the kids, but it hits Grandpa instead. After witnessing Homer rolling up the kids in a carpet and trying to beat them to death, Marge shoots him with his blood spelling out the episode title. We then see Kang and Kodos mocking the Simpsons for celebrating Halloween in November, before stating they already have their Christmas decorations up. It's a violent intro with a fun Kang and Kodos cameo. What's not to like? In Reaper Madness, Death arrives to take Bart Simpson, but Homer kills him, leaving the world without Death. A few days later, he takes Death's body out to the trash and puts on his cloak, becoming the new Grim Reaper, with hilarious results. Being honest, I really like the part where Death was no longer in the world. Seeing Frankie the Squealer not dying and Moe hanging around are intriguing. They're also pretty funny too. I kinda wish the entire segment revolved around that, but then again, Homer's pursuits of Death are fun too. Seeing him turn up at Lisa's Bring Your Parent to Work Day is a highlight of the episode. So is seeing him kill dozens of people just to get better seats at a baseball game. Eventually though, Homer is forced to do the unthinkable, kill his own wife. In the end, he decides he can't do it, so he kills Patty instead and sticks Marge's hair to her head. It fools God long enough for him to relinquish Death's power off of Homer, but when God realises what happens, we get a pretty cool chase scene. I think it's hilarious that not even God can beat a passing train. The segment doesn't deliver on the scares, but it does deliver on the comedy and the imagination. There's even a really fun Benny Hill scene at the beginning of the segment that gets the chuckles rolling. Reaper Madness gets a 7.5 out of 10 from me. It's not the funniest segment, nor is it scary, but it's good fun and a great idea. A very solid start to the episode. This segment marks the second time a Treehouse episode parodies the classic Frankenstein tale, the first time being Homer's nightmare in Treehouse of Horror 2. However, they are completely different. Frankenstein is the first Treehouse installment to focus mainly on Professor Frink, which is good news for me because he's one of my favourite side characters on the show. After hearing he's going to receive a Nobel Prize, he is sad to know that his dad won't be there to see it. He decides to bring his pops back to life using technology, but that doesn't sit too well with his dad. Fun fact, Frink's dad is voiced by Jerry Lewis, whose performance in The Nutty Professor is the inspiration for the Professor Frink character. Lewis is a perfect fit for the role, with excellent timing and pacing with his lines. His voice acting is also top notch. So yeah, Frink's dad goes on a mad escapade that involves harvesting real body parts and organs from living beings. This is arguably one of the more gruesome segments in Treehouse history. After a few days rampaging, what the hell is that? It looks like the love child of Pennywise the Clown and the bride of Frankenstein. It's a completely bonkers segment, I'll admit, but unlike some previous segments, this one has a great flow to it. Its pacing is right and the story is told well. Props to the staff behind it for managing to fit so much into a short time slot, yet make it flow so perfectly. Lisa manages to convince him to lose the body parts and go to his son's Nobel Prize award night, and he finally confesses he is proud of Frink. I genuinely get a slight tug of my heartstrings here. Seeing Frink hear the words he so longed to is a beautiful moment. Then his dad goes crazy and starts harvesting brains. It's a mad moment, but Lewis's voice work actually sells it. The madness ends, however, with what is easily the funniest moment in the entire episode. I'm not even going to explain it. Just watch.
You've got to stop your father.
Yes, but how? He's 63 years old, pressure points here and here, room temperature is 22 degrees Celsius. Yes, this should just about do it. Balzac!
That brings me nicely onto the comedy of this segment. Long story short, it's bloody hilarious. No matter how many times I've watched this segment, I can't help but laugh at something. whether it's Frink's mannerisms, his dad's warped mind, or just the sheer slapstick comedy. I'd even argue it had its creepy moments with Frink's dad tearing organs out of people. Frankenstein gets a 9 out of 10 from me. A segment this funny deserves a high ranking, and it really delivered on the idea. Plus, Frink getting his own segment makes me a very happy boy. This segment takes inspiration from the Twilight Zone episode, A Kind of Stopwatch, and the 2002 film Clockstoppers. Bart and Milhouse find an ad for a stopwatch that stops time and order it. To their surprise, it actually works, and they use it for pure hijinks. Eventually the town catches on to their pranks, and whilst trying to escape their wrath, the boys end up breaking the stopwatch, pausing time forever. Now I'll start by saying this is probably the weakest segment of the episode, but that's not really saying much. Both other segments are very solid in their own right, and this segment is still very enjoyable. When the world freezes for the first time, I like all the still shots of things happening. Grandpa sneezing his teeth out and Lenny and Carl colliding in a car crash are great visuals. The writers also used the concept to its full potential. The pranks the boys use are fun to watch and took some imagination. Sure, there's the obvious pulling Skinner's pants down, but the humiliating the mayor, stripping Homer and Nelson, and changing the town hall signs are great. It's also nice to see things from the perspective of those who can't freeze time. I'll admit, things just changing at random would make me go loopy. If I had one issue, it would be that they didn't try to do much with the idea of time being stuck forever. We just jump cut to them having stolen many riches and even boxer Oscar de la Hoya. Bart and Milhouse end up spending 15 years trying to fix the watch, and when they do, they frame Martin for their troublemaking. Later on, Bart lets Lisa have fun with the stopwatch, and she presses the red button which changes reality, causing her family members to change in many ways, such as becoming the members of the Fantastic Four. Much like Time and Punishment, the segment ends when the family land on what is probably the closest they are to reality. I'll give this segment a 7 out of 10. It's a solid entry with some good laughs and a lot of imagination. Sure, the scares are non-existent, but that's a small issue. It's still highly watchable and enjoyable. This episode rocks and is, in my opinion, one of the more underrated Treehouse installments. All three entries are very solid, with Frankenstein being a standout classic in my book. Reaper Madness and Stop the World I Want to Goof Off are also really good segments that are fun to watch every year. Treehouse of Horror 14 gets an 8 out of 10 from me. It's a very funny episode with 3 incredibly imaginative segments that are a blast to watch. I recommend rewatching this one if you haven't in a while. It might just surprise you. And that's it for this review and this video. Do you agree with me, or do you think I'm 3 organs short of an abomination? What do you think of Treehouse of Horror 14? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time.